So, today we are going to have a look at Dawn of the Jedi Eruption. The first, chronologically, of the Star Wars Expanded Universe short stories. Dawn of the Jedi Eruption was written by John Ostrander as a lead into the Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void novel, and was released on the 30th of April 2013. So it's actually released a lot longer along the line as far as release date compared to what we will get into in a lot of the Rebellion era and, well, the life cycle of the Expanded Universe, I'll call it, which is interesting. So yeah, for context, this is many moons before any of the movies, and is a lead into Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void. Here's my timeline. This is my work in progress copy that I'm sharing here, so as I've read through, there's some things that have definitely been added and changed, but yeah. So, Dawn of the Jedi Eruption is what we're looking at. 25,793 years before the Battle of Yavin. This is music from Star Wars Demolitions, by the way. Funky. So we have a context there, and then the rest of Force Storm is after Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void, and the appropriate short story that is set after it. The main thing that people may be familiar with is the novel. Dawn of the Jedi Eruption. Hawkrio drifted in and out of the shadows, a shadow himself. The moon world, Zerust, was located far from the sun, and most of the available light was reflected off the gas giant, Obri, around which the moon orbited. Kanan was typically bustling with activity, but the workers' town was now deserted. Like all the surface towns on Zerust, Kanan was located near an active volcano for its much-needed warmth, despite the risk of occasional eruptions. They said it at the title. The authorities usually predicted the eruptions in time and evacuated the threatened areas, just as they had recently done with Kanan. No one was left in the town except Hawk. In theory. In reality, the Jedi Ranger spotted two figures atop the flat-roofed building less than a kilometer away. Only 5 stories high, it was still the tallest building in the area. They were Twi'leks, like himself, and armed. Hawk opened his comm and called his partner. Her surroundings, Lenore Brock decided, were beautiful. Underground seas flowed through large caverns smoothed with high vaulted ceilings, and natural minerals gave off enough light to create a twilight effect. It was no wonder the rich of Zerust chose to live in the warm caverns rather than the cold surface of the moon. It was calm on this island, lending itself to meditation. Peaceful. The negotiations were not. The management of Desane mining and the manual labourers were now simply shouting at one another. Ill will was building. Lenore was finding it difficult to maintain balance between the light and the dark sides of the Force as she was taught. Management consisted entirely of the extended Desane family, which was headed by Emin Desane, the tall, pale patrician head of the clan. The workers, both human and alien, were led by short, weather-beaten Arco Santis, and demanded a voice in how the company was run. They left Zerust to labour at the gas mining operations floating above Obri. The pay was steady, if not generous, but it was a hard life. For their part, the Desanes were loath to cede control to anyone who was not family. The solution, it was decided, would be a marriage between Brom Santis, Arco's oldest son, and Oma Desane, Emin's youngest daughter. Brom would become part of the Desane family and a voice for the workers. Lenore had gone stuck with the role of negotiator, and though it wasn't the solution she would have suggested, if it satisfied all parties concerned, then it satisfied her. That was before Oma Desane vanished. Each side blamed the other for her disappearance. Work at Desane Mining had ground to a halt. Tempers flared and open class warfare looked not only possible, but likely. Lenore and Hawk had been sent by the Jedi Council on Tython to prevent violence and find the girl. Lenore's comm buzzed. The ranger swung her long legs out of the chair, turning away from all the shouting. "Please tell me you found the girl." "I may have found her," Hawk replied. "I went to the spaceport to check who arrived or left around the time of the kidnapping. I discovered a Shikakuan ship registered to Baron Volnus Row." "Your brother?" "My brother, the crime lord." Lenore could picture Hawk's lips twisting in distaste. He owns interest in the mining operations on Obri's 2 other moons, but he's never been able to get a foothold with the Desanes. One of the ways to increase the value of his own holdings is to decrease the value of his rivals' holdings. Are you growling? Maybe. Will Oma still be alive? Her body hasn't been found, so it's likely. If they intend to kill her, it'll be when the 2 sides are at each other's throats. Which will be soon. You have to keep them from reaching the boiling point. I think I've spotted where Oma is being held, but you can't say anything until I know for sure. I'll let you know what I find. Keep the workers and management from killing each other. Right, you get the easy job. The Force be with you. Lenore turned back to the round wooden table and narrowed her grey eyes. Both sides were already at the breaking point. Violence was ready to erupt. But Lenore had a theory. Sometimes the best way to cut off violence was to use it first. Her right hand dropped to the slug thrower at her hip. She didn't often carry one, didn't need it most times, but something told her to wear one today. If there's one thing Lenore learned through her experience, it was to listen to her instincts. With one fluid move, she aimed the slug thrower straight up over her head and fired 3 bursts into the ceiling. The arguing stopped dead, and all eyes went to the auburn-haired ranger. Jedi were mysterious beings to most of the sentients of the settled worlds. They went where they willed and intervened where they chose, or, they claimed, as the Force directed. They had strange powers and were both respected and feared. Right now, Lenore was feared. Good. That meant she had their attention. The slug thrower still in hand, the Jedi Ranger sat back in her chair, placing the weapon on the table before her. The barrel pointed at the now silent. Her barrel point. English can help sometimes to actually get good at it. The barrel pointed at the now silent delegation. She spoke quietly. The last time I was a negotiator was on Skagora. Before I was done, the forests were ablaze and one of the parties was dead. She leaned forward. I was hoping these negotiations would go smoother. In truth, the deaths and the burning forests on Skagora haunted Lenore. The negotiators here on Zerus, however, didn't need to know that. Perhaps we should begin again, she suggested in a low murmur. They did, quietly and with nervous glances in her direction. Certainly hadn't been seen by anyone. Hawk reached the side of the 5-story building and glanced upward. One guard was directly above him and the other would be across the roof. It was vital that he silence both before they could give alarm, assuming the girl was alive. The ranger brought his sword out of its sheath without a whisper, holding it in his right hand as he let the balance within him slip into the dark side. Hawk knew the dark side well. He dwelled too deeply in it once, and it got him sent to Bogan, a moon of Tython, where those who drifted too far to the dark side were sent by the Jedi Council. for solitary reflection and meditation until they returned to balance. Right now, he needed to use aggression, however, which meant channeling the dark side. He eased into it with a comfortable familiarity while he crouched and then leapt straight upward, letting the force carry him. Hawk cleared the edge of the roof, right in front of the very surprised Twi'lek guard, and without hesitation slashed his sword across the guard's neck. He died silently. The other guard sensed something amiss and started to turn. Hawk gestured with the force and pulled him across the roof. The guard gasped for a moment before being impaled on the ranger's sword. Their eyes met and Hawk recognized him. Dion Arla, one of his brother's personal guards. Arla's eyes registered recognition as well, and then life faded from them. Hawk felt his death in the Force, and part of him, the part that fed on the dark side, felt a deep satisfaction. The ranger let the body slide off his sword and took a deep breath, centering himself again in balance. It was tempting for Hawk to just stay in the dark side as he had once before. It was seductive, but dangerous. Hawk found a stairway in the middle of the roof leading down into the building and descended cautiously. 2 floors down were 2 large rooms on either side of the stairwell, the doors left wide open in the haste of the evacuation. At first blush, they appeared to have been used as dormitories for workers that were unmarried. Cots were overthrown and debris littered the floor. Hugging the stairway wall, Hawk glanced through the doorway and found Oma. The girl was bound and gagged on a cot next to the wall opposite the door. A large and surly-looking Twi'lek stood guard, a slug thrower at the ready. But he was looking at the far end of the room. Focusing his senses through the Force, the Jedi heard 2 more Twi'leks at the other end of the dormitory. Neither sounded happy. "Thought this would be over by now. You got other things to do? Other than sitting next to a so-called volcano?" "Yes." "Problem is that Jedi sitting at the table. Not for long, though. Our contact will take care of her. Then we off the girl, leave the corpse where it can be found, and get gone." Hawk couldn't risk coming a warning to Lenore. His best bet were to settle things here and hope his fellow ranger was still alive. However, the moment he made a move, the 2 guards at the end of the room would see him, and the guard closest to Oma would certainly kill her. He needed a diversion. The volcano provided a spectacular one. Ahead of schedule, the eruption started with a clap of thunder as plumes of pumice, flaming ash, and molten lava were belched into the air. Everyone was stunned for a moment, but then Hawk moved. His sword in his right hand and a long knife in his left, he swept into the room. Hurling the knife toward the guard standing next to Oma, he guided it with the force into the Twi'lek's neck. The guard's finger tightened on the trigger of his slug thrower as he dropped. The shot went wild, but it was audible even over the roaring volcano. Hawk pivoted toward the 2 other guards and sped toward them as they turned to the source of the slug fire and spotted him. A moment for their reaction, a few steps for Hawk, a moment as they brought their slug throwers around, another few steps. They aimed their weapons. Hawk threw himself into a forward roll beneath their shots, and pushed off of one leg as he came forward and up. Flipping in midair over the guards, the Jedi shoved his boot down hard into the upturned face of the one to his right. Nosebone and cartilage cracked as the Twi'lek fell backwards. The Jedi landed, spun, and thrust his sword into the fallen Twi'lek's chest. A quick and clean kill. His partners kept firing, but always where the Jedi had been. Hawk landed in a crouch and, with a gesture of his hand, delivered a force blow that sent his target backward through the window. The Twi'lek's scream was covered by the volcano's roar. The Twi'lek's scream was covered by the volcano's roar. Hawk preferred not to kill when he had the option, but there was no time and no other choice. Still, the dark part in him exulted and he struggled to bring himself back to the balance. Hawk squatted next to Oma. "I'm Jedi Ranger Hawk Rio, and I've been sent here to rescue you. Try to be calm." Picking the teen up, Hawk threw over one shoulder and raced back up to the roof. Superheated volcanic debris rained down on the town. The wooden building started to catch fire. Hawk again tried to warn Lenore, but the ash jammed the comm signal. It was hard to see through the ash, and the ranger tightened his grip on Oma. Cooling on the force once more, he leapt to the next nearest roof, ran across, and then jumped to the next roof after that. He could barely breathe and was jumping blind, but he hoped he could trust in the force that he was taking them out of danger, and that Lenore was not dead. Ranger Brock eased back into her chair. The discussions were still going nowhere, but at least everyone was civil. A servant brought her a goblet of wine, a Vesamond red, even. Something she had developed a taste for on Skargora. Lenore raised the goblet to her lips and paused. She knew the bouquet of the wine and something bitter underlay the aroma. Lenore turned her head to glance at the servant who had given it to her. A nervous little man, as old as Emin Desane. Fear came off him like a wave, a bitter aroma of its own. The servant turned to run. Lenore caught him with the force, lifted him up, and dropped him onto the round table. Thrusting the goblet into his face, Lenore whispered, "I think this vintage is off. Please, taste it." The man's eyes went wide as he babbled incoherently. Lenore growled, "Drink it, little man, or I will make you drink it." She didn't have that ability, but it was commonly believed that the mysterious Jedi could seize your mind. That fear, that superstition, sometimes served the Jedi almost as well as the Force did. The servant certainly believed the stories. "No, it's poisoned!" he blurted. Lenore folded her arms, keeping her eyes on her would-be assassin. "Master Desane, you have a traitor in your midst. The kidnappers would have needed someone on the inside to reach your daughter. That traitor is this man." Emin Desane looked at his servant, appalled. "Bertolo? All these years you're a trusted servant, almost a member of the family." "Why?" "Because all these years I've only been a servant," Bertolo said quietly. "Never a member of the family. I wanted to have something of my own before I died. A chance to leave this wretched rock." Desane's voice seethed with fury. "Where is my daughter, Bertolo?" "With any luck, dead, my lord." Lenore's comm buzzed. "With any luck, my lord, she is not," she said as she activated the comm. "Hawk? Lenore, someone is going—" "Yes, I know, he tried and failed. Is Oma Desane with you?" "She is," Ray said. "But we have another problem." "What do you mean refuse to marry Brom Santos?" Emin, while relieved to have his daughter back, was furious. Oma Desane stood alongside Hawk Row with the delegations on the island in the cavern. She, like him, was covered in ash, making her pale skin even whiter and powdering her dark hair the same hue. Free from her bonds, she stood glaring defiantly at her father. Oma's chin jutted out. "I mean I won't marry him! No one asked me if I wanted to get married. I don't and I won't! You have your duty to English. You have your duty to the family. I have a duty to myself. I don't know this Brom. I don't love him, and I won't marry him to settle some dispute." This set off another round of arguing between father and daughter, with Santos pitching in. "This is breaking down quickly," Hawk murmured. "Actually, my sympathies are with the girl. She shouldn't be a clause in a treaty," Lenore murmured back. "If she doesn't relent, the negotiations will likely collapse and everything we've done will be for nothing." "I think I may have another solution," Lenore said. "First, I'll need their attention." She shot her slug thrower 3 times in the air, and again with the same effect. Very pleasantly, Lenore spoke. "In other parts of the solar system, rival interests have a practice called fostering. I suggest you try it out. Oma will become a foster child in the Santos household, and Brom will be the same in the Desanes. With the Desanes." Each will be treated as a full member of the family they are with. They will spend 6 months with one family and 6 months with the other. The workers would have a voice through Brom, and Omar would learn firsthand about the workers' lives. I think this is a very reasonable suggestion, Hawk added, equally pleasant. But the expressions on the two Jedi firmly suggested that all sides accept the deal. Omar looked pleased, at least she wasn't getting married. Details were worked out, Hawk cleaned up, and the two Jedi met at the spaceport to take leave of Xeris and of each other. The Council has summoned me back to Tython for a special mission, Lenore said. It's been 4 years since I've been back. It's time. I'm heading out to Fury's Gate, replied Hawk. It was the outermost planet in the system. I didn't really separate his voice there, did I? I'm heading out to Fury's Gate, replied Hawk. It was the outermost planet in the system. Great generation ships left from the small world, seeking a path through the maze that was the core and looking for ways back to the rest of the galaxy. The settled worlds jointly maintained a station there. I like to look out into the stars and meditate. He said. A small shadow passed over Lenore's face. My brother used to look out at the stars and wonder if there was a way back to the rest of the galaxy. He was never very happy on Tython, she said softly. She was quiet for a moment, then shook it off and said, It was good working with you, Ranger Vero. I look forward to the chance to do it again. Hawk nodded. I do too, Ranger Brock. The Force be with you. Lenore smiled. And you, she replied. The Jedi then crossed to their waiting ships and took off into the star-flecked skies. So that was Dawn of the Jedi Eruption. And then the next short story is The Adventures of Lenore Brock, Jedi Ranger. Let me know what you think. Description below. It has links. Or will have links. And I will catch you next time. Eerie!